Hey, everybody, and Happy New Year to you all. Welcome back to 2022 and the first episode for the year. I hope you all had a safe and happy holidays with and caught up with your family and had as much fun as humanly possible. I definitely had a nice, quiet one this year. It was very pleasant. Just rode bikes and caught up with some friends and just generally took it really easy. So to start off this year, for the first episode, for 2022. I actually wanted to release this last week, but I decided to just take an extra week off and we're going away camping last weekend. So I just thought I'd chill for a little bit longer before getting stuck back into this. But I was really stoked to sit down recently with 3-time national and 3-time world solo mountain bike champion, Jess Douglas. So it's a lot of words. I keep bumbling it up. So it was a really cool conversation. And she's such an interesting person. She's done so much, even just off the bike. But I mean, riding a bike solo for 24 hours and winning worlds 3 times, I think is pretty goddamn miraculous. So I can't thank Jess enough for coming on the show and sit down for a chat with me. And I hope you enjoy the episode as well. So here is the first episode for 2022. I have named Jess Douglas, Solo Yolo. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the TSG Bikecast. I'm your host, Steve Tamasov, and with me, I'm pretty stoked to have Jess Douglas on the line with me. How you going, mate?
Good, thanks. Thank you so much for wanting to talk to me, Steve. It's going to be very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we had a little bit of a chat beforehand about a few things you've been up to, and Norm's having a kip on the couch in the other room. And so we'll talk about Norm a bit later on in the show as well. But the first question I ask everybody is, where were you born and where'd you grow up?
I was born in Geelong, grew up in Geelong, and lived all my life in Geelong till I was 18. And that's when I married Norm and moved to Sydney.
Right. So Geelong, yeah, I love Geelong. I was just down there recently, actually. So you spent a lot of time growing up along the coast, and did you do a lot of water sports and stuff growing up?
No, I was so not the sporty kid. I avoided swimming sports at school. I avoided pretty much everything I could except for riding my bike.
Yeah.
I had a philosophy, well, probably not a philosophy. I had a belief system that thought that anyone who plays sport must be destined for the Olympics. And I was pretty much sure that I was not an Olympian. So I stuck to what I really loved, which was art and writing stories, cooking, sewing, craft, and riding my bike.
That's awesome. I did find in an interview somewhere, it was saying like when you're around 10 years old, you used to do like these solo trips up and down the river and stuff on your bike.
Yes.
Was that just something you always did? Just like you just get up and go on your bike, I'm going to ride here now, or just go where your nose pointed?
Yeah, look, I liked exploring. I was pretty much like riding along and thinking, where does that path go? Where does that go? Oh, wouldn't that be amazing if it was a cool little trail that went somewhere? And, I had no concept of what was a mountain bike, or certainly back then, I guess mountain biking was only probably even just starting out in the US. And again, the people riding mountain bikes weren't really conceptualizing a mountain bike like it is today. So I had various assortment of bikes, your typical girl's bike, 3-speed, sort of, big sweep handlebars, sort of step through frame. When I was younger, I had your typical, like a dragster with the banana type seat.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't have gear stick down on the top tube though. It was just no gears, just single speed. And I just had an assortment of bikes. So I would just ride along the river and just think, where am I going to go? And the river was close to me, so that was easy. And I would pack a backpack with like an empty bottle of, because, also back then, you didn't you didn't go to the shop and buy water. That's for sure. I had recycled cordial containers that I would put water in and just carry that in my backpack, and an apple, an apple for a snack, and just nick off. Now, I didn't really take anyone because no one else was interested. And I did not mind my own company. I was very much, you know what, I don't want to do what other people are doing just because I need company. If I feel like going for a bike ride, I'll do it by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That was how
absolutely.
I got about things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what about your schooling? You went to school in Geelong and stuff as well.
I did. I went
sort of
to East
stuff are you
Geelong
interested?
Primary. Sorry.
What sort of stuff you're interested in school? Like, what was your focus?
Well, it's funny because when I was at school, as I said before, I was into art and crafts and just anything that I could use my imagination with. And what happened one time, I think it was in about grade 5, we had a couple of teachers that were running a bike ed program. And I really liked it. It was really cool because we went on the road, we learned how to do hand signals, we learned how to turn right at an intersection, all the things that were really, really handy as I got older, especially even when I got my license, because I already knew how to ride a bike on the road. So by the time I got to drive, I was like, oh, I know what to do here. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, this bike ed camp was really exciting. And like I was saying before, I wasn't into sport, but I really loved riding my bike and the adventure of it. So the bike ed camp culminated in the bike ed program culminated in a bike ed camp. And we went to Queenscliff, stayed the night and rode back. Now, there wasn't the rail trail back then. So the Queenscliff rail trail would have been super handy, but we did it on road, which is why we did all the road training. And we got to the Queenscliff football ground, camped the night, and rode back. It was the best fun ever. And from then on, I knew that I could ride 30K. So I used to ride to Barwon Heads and Queenscliff, Ocean Grove, all sorts of places, because I lived in Whittington, which is sort of the eastern suburbs of Geelong. So I used to ride to school, to my friends, wherever. I never used to ask my mum where I could she drop me off somewhere. I'd just think, well, I'm just going to ride anyway. So bike ed camp at school, at primary school, was the best thing ever. And it taught me some really valuable skills. And it certainly gave me more impetus to explore and certainly the confidence that I could go long and explore.
Bike ed sounds pretty cool. I haven't really heard about that at school. Like, how old were you when you got involved in that?
11.
Oh, that's awesome. We didn't have that at my school in Queensland, that's for sure.
And that's just, often you'll talk to people, you'll talk to all sorts of people in the world, but certainly people who've gone and done amazing things. And often there'll be a teacher or a person or, some catalyst in their life that has showed them that there's another path, that there's another option, that perhaps, consider this. And it's not that they tell you what to do. It's just that they plant that seed and that seed resonates with you and you go forth and make it your own. So from that day onwards, I was just like, well, this is it. I'm going to ride my bike forever. And I knew that the man that I was going to marry, he was going to ride bikes and it was all going to be about bikes. And it didn't really, I wasn't able to conceptualize what that meant. I just knew that it was a feeling. And it was very similar, if I can go back just a little bit.
Yeah.
It was very similar to a feeling I had, I think it was my 4th or 5th birthday. I never quite remember, but I got given a bike for my birthday. And I think it was my 4th birthday. And my dad held me on the back and on the back of the seat and sort of said, come on, pedal, pedal, pedal. And I pedaled and then he let go, but I didn't know that. And I rode away and I just went, still to this day, the words aren't in my head, but the feeling was, I'm going to ride my bike and go places. And I was just so excited. We lived right in the middle of the city and it wasn't super busy, but there were all these paddocks, I guess, empty house blocks, I should say. And there was this one empty house block I always used to visit on my bike and it had a goat in it. And I used to go and hang out with the goat. And my mum and my dad used to wonder where I was, but I knew I was just around the corner. But I guess for me, the bike just gave me that tool to just go and do whatever I wanted, wherever I wanted. So fast forward to high school, as I said, I used to ride my bike to school. I went to Matthew Flinders, which is in the city. It was about a 6K ride. And I would take my bus money and spend that at the canteen and ride my bike. I don't know how I got away with it, but my mum just let me have the bus money and in lieu of riding the bike. It was just the way it was. yeah, so what would happen is I had what is it, like the art portfolio, and it was like really, really wide, and I would stick that under my backpack and ride with that to school, and it was like I had big wings. And I remember thinking, it'd be really cool if I had a tailwind home, but you know how it is, you never get a tailwind on the way home.
No, never.
So then in I think it was 1987, it was the beginning of year 8 or 9. Hang on, I started high school in 1985, so it was 7, 8, 9. All right, the start of year 9, I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer.
Yeah.
And that was a big catalyst for me. And I guess during that period of time, all I'm thinking of is all the chemotherapy and turn up to school and survive, which I did. And there was a time after cancer that I was going to these things called Camp Quality. Have you ever heard of Camp Quality?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, a camp that's put on for children with cancer, so that it's more like other kids get to see other kids who have got cancer, but also respite for the parents or the caregivers. It was super fun. And this one particular camp, we went to the Hume Weir up on the border. And there was people from Sydney on the Camp Quality camp coming down to the Hume Weir, and people from Melbourne coming up to, and we had this sort of, Sydney-Melbourne camp. And I met these Sydney people, and I thought, oh, they're really cool. I'd really like to get to catch up with them on the school holidays. And so I was nutting out how I was going to do it. And I had a bike, and I had a rack on the back, and I even had panniers, and I had a sleeping bag. And I was like, I got home and I worked out how I was going to ride. I worked out what money I was going to need, and I worked out what train I was going to catch home. And I thought, I'll take the school holidays, 2 weeks. That'll be fine. Told my mum, and she said, you're not riding up the Hume Highway. This is, back in 1987, the Hume Highway was not as it is today. And she goes, but I've got an idea. We have a family friend, George, and you should chat to him, because he went and did the Great Victorian Bike Ride last year. And I reckon if he might think that that's a good idea, and he might take you. Spoke to George. He said, no way, I am not being your supervisor for that period of time. I'm doing my own thing. But you should go chat to a teacher at your school, because heaps of school people do it. So I went and chatted to a teacher. Teacher said, yes, boom, there you go. I was doing the Great Victorian Bike Ride. That was then the next sort of catalyst for, wow, I'm still not an athlete. I'm still not doing any sport. I'm still riding my bike. But holy shit, I want to ride my bike every day, and I want to just do it like this, like go long and camp and just get out of reality. And then I would always come back. I went twice, one year and then the next year, and I would come back from those just so depressed, like, afterwards, just like, oh wow, how do I recover from this high? It was the best thing ever.
It's funny because I've had now a couple of people who have raced like yak attacks and other endurance races around the world. And my friend Matt Russo, I don't know if you know Matt Russo, photographer from out here in Mount Beauty, but he said they call it post-race depression, because you get to the finish line and you just want to keep going, And he said the amount of feelings he had when he did the yak attack in Nepal, they'd finish it and go, but I want to ride over there, but we've got to go back to Australia. And it's like, how do we keep that high going?
Yeah, it's really, look, I'm very lucky that I gave myself that opportunity to do that. I don't know why I decided that I was going to pursue the Great Victorian Bike Ride and why I really went down that path, but I can only think that, I really enjoyed my own company. I knew that from the bike ed camp in primary school that I liked riding long distances and exploring and finding out what was where I didn't know. Like, I don't like riding around doing, you see people riding the same loops every single day, or road riders going, yeah, we're doing the Torquay run. And I think, oh, I am not joining you. I cannot do the same loop every week. I have to always mix it up. I don't have the same breakfast every morning, ever. I just always mix it up. So to get to that point where I did that during my teenage years. I was very lucky I did that because I sort of left that alone. When I met Norm at, I think I was 17. And I was just in a space after post-cancer, post-Great Victorian Bike Ride. I was a bit of a dickhead. Most 17-year-olds are, they're just doing life and just underage drinking and just dumb stuff.
It's what being a
And I was
teenager is
going out
about
with this
sometimes.
guy. Hey?
It's what being a teenager is about sometimes.
And I mean, I was doing great at school. I love school. But I was just sort of in a space where I just was sort of floating. And I was hanging out with these guys that were, in my head, sort of like, oh, they're a bit renegade. They're a bit out there. They're naughty. I'm going to go hang out with these guys. Now, they weren't stupid naughty. Like, they weren't getting trouble with the police naughty. They were just not my kind of people. I don't know why I got involved with them. But what ended up happening is I quit year 12 that year because I was just in a bad space, and they looked like they were having more fun and I was hating school. And as a consequence, I ended up going out with this guy who, at the end of the year, he joined the Navy. And that's how I met Norm. So the very next year I went back to school because I realised, it was a dumb thing. I really need to go back and finish year 12. And the boyfriend that I had ended up joining the Navy, and he met Norm, and that's how I met Norm.
Right.
And that was the next catalyst, because in my mind, like I said earlier on, the guy I was going to marry was going to ride bikes and we were going to do all these great things. And I really, I set the bar with Norm. I said, right, if we're going to hook up, you need to ride a bike. That was the only thing. And he's like, yeah, I will. I've got a bike. So that was good. But yeah, he was in the Navy, and we weren't even going to get married at all. We were just hanging out, having a good time. I was finishing year 12. He was at Crib Point, down Cerberus at Crib Point, which is down Frankston Way, Western Port Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And he was being then, I think he gave me some news early on in the year that he was being posted to HMAS Hobart, which is in Sydney. HMAS Hobart no longer exists, but he was going to be moving to Sydney. And how was our relationship going to, I guess, last, me being in Geelong and him in Sydney? And so we got discussing the fact that perhaps we should just get married at the end of the year. So I finished year 12 and he went up to Sydney and did his job on HMAS Hobart. And at the end of the year, we got married.
Wow,
we just were like,
incredible.
I think I'm going to hang out with you for the rest of my life. Actually, let's just have a crack. Like, why spend the next few years working out whether we're in a relationship that's worthwhile? Why don't we just do it now?
Mate, that's so crazy. So before you're 20, you've gone through so much. You realize bikes are sick, which they are. We both know that. You've met Norm. You've gone through cancer as well. You've already done some sick bike rides, and all before you're 20, man. Most people don't even fit that sort of stuff into a lifetime. So you've done it, and you stuck it out too. You guys are still together now and happy as. It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's going back to my early life. Like, whenever I explain to people, it's not until you look back, I guess, at people's history that you can go, now I see who you are. And it really makes sense to me every time I revisit that in my mind or discuss it with someone like you. I just go, yeah, okay. Well, no wonder I got into 24-hour mountain biking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a patch in between, I don't know, between when you're 20 to 30 years old, I couldn't work too much about. So what did you get up into that period? So once you and Norm got married, and did you end up moving to Sydney while he was posted up there?
Yeah, so I moved to Sydney at the end of the year. We got married in the beginning of December 1991. Moved to Sydney. We'd never lived together. We'd spent all up, I think we'd spent 4 weeks together, and 4 days in a row had been our longest stint together. So we really had no idea what we were getting in for, which was perfect because we were young and we just got to know each other. So then after that, I started uni the next year. Long story short, he got out of the Navy, I got out of the uni. We moved to the Gold Coast. We decided that we're young. I've had cancer. I'm not sure whether I can have kids. We got no money anyway. Let's try and have a kid. So I got pregnant, had Saskia, our daughter, she's about to turn 28 in January.
So that was like around 1995 or something, wasn't it?
She was born 94.
94, right, yeah. I was close, so close.
Yeah. Yeah, you were so close. So we're living on the Gold Coast, and then we eventually moved back to Geelong. Norm got a job offer at Michael's Camera and Video in Melbourne. So we moved back to Geelong and got our life started with family around, because we didn't really have any family on the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the best thing we could have done. Now, on the Gold Coast, I dabbled in mountain biking and had a great time, did a bit of road riding, did a bit of mountain biking, even won a 3-hour solo mountain bike race. Now, I was not like skillful at all. I just was willing to outlast everyone. And that little apple came up again. There was a table in the middle of this sort of marquee area in the race. There was a 3 and a 6-hour enduro at this place called Mount Cotton near Brisbane.
That's where I grew up pretty much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I grew up in South Brisbane, yeah.
And it was the Rats Mountain Bike Club, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, they had this table with someone had brought apples from their tree. And I'm riding around, I'm thinking, I'm bloody starving. Oh, shit, there's apples. So I grabbed an apple with about an hour to go and ate an apple on a mountain bike race.
Nice.
Water and apple, because, there was no electrolytes in those days. So, yeah, won my first mountain bike race, had a mountain bike, had a road bike. Then we moved back to Geelong. And we just couldn't find the scene. Like, there was a Geelong Mountain Bike Club, but we rocked up and we just didn't really feel like we fitted in. And we were young parents anyway, so we just got to being parents, and I just went to the gym. We ran, we did fun runs. And then all of a sudden I started, how did I get into it? Not quite sure, but I started river rowing down on the Barwon River. Then I met some friends, or became friends with some other rowers, and then we started surfboat rowing at Torquay. And then from there, after surfboat rowing, which I absolutely loved, now I would have continued on, but our sweep ended up moving to Canberra, and just no one really filled the shoes of this particular sweep.
Uh-huh.
So that was at Torquay. And then one day I saw an ad for the East Geelong Footy Club. We're looking for, this is the beginning of, the VWFL. They were looking for female players and no experience necessary. So I went and played footy. And I played a few seasons, broke a collarbone, started also umpiring footy. Norm umpired footy, our daughter umpired footy. Then I became a gym instructor and a personal trainer. And then from there, one day, a person said to me, a friend of mine who was in the personal training industry, we were at the You Yangs. We went for a run up the top of the You Yangs. And she said, oh, there's mountain bike trails here. We should go mountain biking. And I'm like, oh, I have a mountain bike. I can bring that out. And it was, a really old mountain bike with raked forks and shitty brakes and just
That's how you
everything.
start.
But
That's how you start.
yeah, but we rocked up and we went down Cressy.
Mm-hmm.
And Cressy was really very organic. It was like just scratched into the edge of the hill, and there were water ruts everywhere, and it was just so hard, but I loved it. I was like, what have I done? I've just left mountain biking go for this long. Within a week, we had new mountain bikes with proper forks and proper brakes. And within 2 weeks, Norm had signed us up for a mountain bike race. And that's when I just went, that is it. I am going to be a mountain biker. And I just went, this is my future. I didn't know what it would look like, but I just went, I'm going to invest time, effort, and energy and my brain power into trying to be a better mountain biker. And so
Yeah.
I invented this little 1% methodology for myself. And I don't have the monopoly on the 1% rule, but I think I did really well by myself executing my processes. And that was, so I said to myself, all I have to do is get out and do one mountain bike ride a week for 1 hour and improve just one thing by 1%, and do that every week. And then in a month's time, and then in a year's time, I would have to have improved. I can't fail. So if I just did that every single ride. Now, I obviously went for more than one ride a week, and I went for more than 1 hour a week, and I obviously improved more than one thing by 1%. But it was just, I had to make it easy for myself. I had to make it manageable rather than look at all the people who were awesome. I had to allow myself to be a beginner and do well. So I won 13 races that year as an entry sort of level rider. No, I wasn't racing elite. I rocked up to 26 races that year, and the next year I went, well, you can no longer enter in that category. You'll have to enter elite. And that scared shit out of me because I had to do it all over again. I had to give myself that 1% thing all over again. So every time I found myself out of balance or in too deep, I just brought myself back to get out and do one thing and improve one thing by 1%. So I was going down a trail I didn't like, and I was really scared because it had lots of drops or really tight sections with rocks or whatever. I would think, okay, Jess, just look ahead. Stop looking at the rocks. Just look ahead. Today on this trail, just look a little further ahead so that you can just calm down. And then I'd go, that was good. I'll go up again. All right, just get off the brakes earlier or put on the brakes later. There'd be just those tiny little things rather than go down and fang it and knock off your best time. And that's how I improved myself over the many years.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I read about the 1%. Is actually one of my questions, and you explained it for me straight away without me even asking. And you've used that mantra for so many years, and it's led you into great things, of course, which we'll get into. So that first ever race that you did with a friend, and
yes,
yeah, and like, how was that feeling? Like, you didn't do well. You probably crashed a few times, but how was it knowing that seed had been planted again? You knew it was just going to happen. Like, it must have, at the end of that race, you must have been pretty stoked.
Yeah, I was like, I had the rose colored glasses on, even though I crashed, even though I cramped, even though like we were in a female pair and we came 5th out of 10 female pairs. So I was like, it's not too shabby. I'm not selling myself too bad here. I just loved it. I loved the vibe. I loved the people. I loved the trails. I loved the fact that after 8 hours, I had just been out on the trails all day, and oh man, I can't even tell you. It was just euphoric. And I just wanted it again and again and again. It was like a drug.
Yeah, awesome. Not a bad drug to be taken, I think. It's a good way to push. So when you were in the elites and you did your first 24-hour, you got 3rd, I think. Yes. What race was that? Where were you racing?
Well, that was at Reedsdale. It was, what did it used to be called? I think, well, maybe it's the Reedsdale 24-hour, and it became the Kona 24-hour. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was the Kona 24-hour. These are the things, these are the little details that sometimes I forget. I have to bring up my blog and go, what was that called? Yeah, and I even had a little sleep, and I thought that you had to sleep, and I didn't even know what it was like to get through 24 hours because I really like my sleep.
Yes, yeah.
And in the end, it was just the most magical thing. But before that, and you might have read this, I went to a 24-hour race in a team of 6 at Canberra at Cowan Forest. And it was the very first year that it became the Scott 24-hour. And I think the bushfires had been in at Canberra that year or the year before, and they were refurbishing and, replanting and doing all the trails at Stromlo. So this race at Cowan Forest had always been had. but that was the first year that they turned the teams event also into the Australian solo 24-hour. And I was in this team of 6, and I was the token female. So I went out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then me. So it was like, I only got 3 laps in this team, and we went all the way to Canberra. And the night riding was my first night ride. It was the best fun ever. And I saw James Williamson come in to win I think he was coming in on his last lap, and he was just covered in dust and he looked like shit, and he was riding slow, but he still looked happy. And I thought, if I'm going to do a 24-hour race, I want to look like that. I want to look absolutely smashed. So then that was it. I had in my head that I would start training to make it to a 24-hour race. So the very next year, Norm and I went to the Scott 24-hour, which was still a solo race as well. And that was then at Mount Stromlo. And I did it as a pair with Norm. That was going to be my next step up. And he was not a very good pair to be with, because I came in a couple of times to swap over laps and he was asleep. So I had to go out and do sometimes 2 or 3 laps in a row so that he could get his shit together.
So he's better off just slinging spanners for you.
Yeah. And that's when we decided, no more teamies with you. I'm just going to do it on my own.
Yeah. So you guys formed a pretty formidable partnership over those years, like 3 nationals and 3 worlds, I think it was. You've done that all together. How did your sponsorship and that, from, I think it was Giant Bikes in those early days? Are you still with Giant now?
No, I'm not. I don't have any sponsors now, which is kind of good, because I'm not really racing anymore. I'm just enjoying life as a freelance person. We're just like a normal human, which is wonderful. But Giant Bikes were fantastic. We had an early partnership with them, and I had lots of financial support from obviously them, and also Shimano helped me out with so much parts, and every year I would get a massive bundle, which was very exciting. But all my bikes were very well looked after. I had Bike Box, which I had the Schwalbe tires, and it was jet black. Jet Black also gave me lights and grips, and geez, I don't know. I barely had to pay for anything. I don't think I paid for anything for a very long time, which is great because there's not much money in 24-hour mountain biking, but there was, it was very, very good on the other side. So really what this allowed me to do was a really good platform to then teach. And so I became an instructor and taught people, and was able to, I guess, use that as a platform and coaching. So I never stopped. Sorry, I always, even though I was a personal trainer, that evolved into cycling coach, and then that evolved into instructing, and then it evolved into events, and then it evolved into keynote speaking, and then it just was very organic the way it grew. So very, very lucky. But geez, you probably don't. The average person probably looks on and goes, yeah, Jess did this and Jess did that. But there's so much work behind it, a lot of work behind it, which eventually led to my burnout, really.
Yeah, right on. I mean, you put that much on your shoulders, it eventually happens, doesn't it? Yeah. So,
but that's okay. Like now I look at it and I think, I struggled with it for a long time, wondering what do I do now that if I don't ride? What if I do now that if I don't race? Who am I now if I don't have any of these goals to pursue? And it's not until now, when I turn 49 in February, that you finally give yourself that chance to go, you know what, you did a great job. You had a great life. Look at, you've still got a great life, but you worked so hard, and it's okay to feel sad about it, but you should be proud about it.
Absolutely. It doesn't take until you sit back and look back at your accomplishments and go, oh, actually, that was pretty cool what I've done back then, and now I'm ready just to chill out. Like, yeah, you're a grandma too right now, so you know.
Yeah, and I've got
Yeah.
another grandchild due in just around my birthday, actually.
Oh, that's
We'll
awesome.
have
Yeah,
two grandkids.
they'll keep your hands
Sorry?
full, mate. They'll keep your hands full, mate.
Oh, it's the best fun. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. So you raced like early overseas as well. Oh, let me find my cheat sheet here. Yeah, you went to your first 24-hour in Canada for
Yep.
Worlds, and you
Yep.
finished fourth in 2009. Tell us about that. What was that experience like?
Wow. Well, so I won the national championship, and I didn't know that I was going to win the national championship, but I did. And when I had the acceptance of the medal and the jersey and had to go up on the podium, I was then told that as part of the national championship that I would have my flights paid for to go to Canada. And that was $5,000 worth of flights paid for. So, and it didn't matter if I could get Norm in on that as well. And so we found some flights that I could get Norm in on. We went to Canada, $5,000 flights were paid for. All I had to do was enter the race, which was $200 or something. Then we had to do accommodation. Oh my goodness. Everything, every cent we had, we put into this. But an opportunity like that popped up and I wasn't going to say no. And Norm agreed. He's like, yeah, we need to go. Like, when I said to you back in, what was it, 2006 on that first mountain bike race, I had no idea I would put myself on a world stage. From that primary school Jessica who said, that only people who do sport are Olympians.
Yeah.
Here I am, I'm about to go on a world stage. So to get there, I was like, well, what is possible? Maybe if I can win a national championship, maybe I can sort of be there with the people up the top. But of course, once I went and I realized at the end what it really takes, that's when I came back and realized I've still a lot of work to do, but it's that mental toughness that I learnt more about by going to Canada, that when it hurts and when you're tired, when you don't want to go on and when the trail's really, really hard, you can't allow yourself to let that emotion bog you down. So then I invented another mantra, and that was pain only hurts and hurt is an emotion. So I just tell myself that again and again. Pain only hurts. And it worked really well. But coming fourth, I was pretty disappointed. I felt like, oh my goodness, it was about $10,000 to go to Canada. And we went back and our bank account had about $200 in it. So we had to go work our butts off. But it was one of those lessons that I wouldn't have got if I sat at home. And anyone who puts themselves out there on the world stage, until you can actually see where you are and pit yourself against other people in the rest of the world, it's not until then that you realize where you are headed, where you want to head. Do you want to do the work? And if you do, well, now you know what you need to do.
Absolutely.
So I had 18 months.
And so what was the sort of course like compared to stuff you'd raced in Australia and Canada? Like, it would have been a bit more challenging, a bit more elevation maybe as well?
Yeah, a lot of elevation, a lot of climbing, a lot of routes. It was at Canmore, and so it's a ski village, and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And that was very taxing. And it was a very long course. So it was like a figure eight style course where you would go out on one loop, come back in, go back out on another loop. The second loop was even harder. There were bears out on the course. There was a mother bear and a cub. And we were told that we had to keep our noise level up while we were riding in the middle of the night because we didn't want to get in front of the mother bear and the cub. So it was a bit scary. I never saw it, thank goodness. I would say trails in Australia in comparison that I had ridden up until that time were flowy. Yes, they were technical, but they were built with a technical purpose. And because these trails at Canmore were dual use. A lot of the trails in Canada, and probably the US for that matter, are multi-purpose. You've got walkers, you've got skiers, you've sometimes got horses, and you've got mountain bikers. And so some things are really hard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
There's not many bermed, beautiful corners.
Yeah.
Although there are sections, but it's not full of it.
Yeah. Canada was pretty much well into its mountain biking sort of industry by that point. Australia is still in its infancy, essentially. So, you look how far we've progressed now to what racing is in Australia now. We've had EWSs and all sorts of really cool shit happening in Australia now. So you won your first Worlds in Stromlo.
Yep.
It was, yeah. How was that? So how do you prepare for something like a 24-hour solo trip first off? I suppose I don't want to skip over that. But then, and then we'll go into how you went at Stromlo.
How do you prepare to go overseas for a 24-hour?
Oh, just doing a 24-hour. Because to anyone I told that I'm talking to Jess Douglas about 24-hour solo racing, they're going, what the fuck? 24 hours on a bike on your own? Yeah, that's what people do sometimes.
Well, if I go back to when I was riding the Great Victorian Bike Ride and that feeling of just wanting to keep riding, you've got to have that. When people say they can't ride 24 hours, I don't want to ride. I couldn't do that. I always say to them, you've got to want to do it. It's not whether you can or can't. It's whether you will or whether you can, whether you want to, I should say. That is the difference. So as soon as you decide I'm in, this is what I want, then it's working out a system, a set of processes, because everyone can ride. Well, we can all try and ride really fast for an hour. And then eventually we start to slow down. And then you need to manage your fuel. Then you need to manage your drinking. You need to manage your headspace. You certainly need to manage your bike. So you start making decisions based on, with your practice laps, for example, you look at A lines and you think, is that A line going to be worth it at midnight? Am I going to be able to ride that? Is this really hard right now? Or do I take the B line and take that sacrifice of an extra 30 seconds, knowing I can do it now and 24 hours later? Because you don't want to have a crash. You don't want to break your brake lever off or give yourself a burp flat, or, there's all these things you've got to think about. So it's managing your body, it's managing your bike, it's managing your mind, the nutrition, and developing a set of mantras, even down to deciding. This is what I learned very early on, deciding early on to put your own songs into your head. So often I would put a sticker on my bike, all the mantras that I wanted to say and the songs I wanted to hear in my head, because sometimes random shit pops up and it's horrible. It never goes. So you look down here and you go, oh yeah, that song. That's what I want to sing. Because 24 hours really does go quick. It really, really does. But the person who will win a 24-hour race does all the 1%ers right, all the tiny little things. They remember to drink as they're crossing a fire road instead of stomping it. They come through transition and do things with purpose. They look after their bike. They don't have a crash. They don't get a flat. Everything, all those things. That's how you plan for a 24-hour. Yeah. And how do you train for it is that you need to do long rides. Because when you ride for an hour and you're riding really fast, you're only going to find out what your body is capable of in an hour. If you do it for 10 hours, all the things are going to hurt. And so then you start to realize, oh, I always get a tight hip. Why do I get a tight hip? Oh, I've got some imbalances here. I need to work on my glute. My bike setup's wrong. Or I forgot to drink. Shit, that's no good. I can get away with it today because it's just a 10-hour ride. The next 10-hour ride I go on, I'm going to need to drink more often. All the little things that start to really magnify, they really show up in a longer ride. So it does take time. And I think when you're looking at winning a world championship, you need to have a lot of failure beforehand.
Yeah,
to
failure
learn.
to drive, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so you went on and then you went to Stromlo in 2010. I think that was it. 2009 or 2010. Yeah. So was that the first time that Stromlo had held a 24-hour Worlds?
Yes.
It was. So it must have felt pretty important to you to get in there and give it a fair nudge, right?
Oh, absolutely. When I found out it was going to be in Australia and at Mount Stromlo, I was like, oh my God, my favorite trails and my favorite place. And I love Canberra and I've got to win. I've got to win. So I made sure that I just never left a stone unturned. I had to work on my mind. I had to work on reframing every single word or every single story I told myself for the next 18 months. It was exhausting.
I bet.
But one of the things is that I told myself, even on the starting line, is that someone has to win today. Doesn't matter whether you're having a macrame competition or whether you're trying to win a world 24-hour solo championship, or doesn't matter what you're trying to win, someone in the world is going to be the world champion. You have to want it. You have to decide that you're in. But you know, first of all, you got to be honest. Did you do the work? Are you just bullshitting yourself? And I thought, no, I have definitely done the work. I've definitely ticked all the boxes. And it was like, well, then you should go for it. So just like with anything, that if you really wanted to win, you've got to make sure you're up there. You've got to make sure you're there for the opportunities. There's no use sitting at the back saying, oh, just wait for everyone else to stuff up and I'll just come in and do a Bradbury. That's just waiting for luck. So you just got to be really aggressive and go for it. So that first 6 hours, I was winning the race and I started to fatigue a little. I thought, I've probably gone out a bit too hard, but you've got to go good while the legs are good. And then other girls started passing me and I was just like, damn, there we go. I'm going to come fourth again. And this little devil on the shoulders sort of, you're just shit, you're no good. And I had to say, hang on. It's still early days. It hasn't even hit midnight yet. You can still win this. Let them go. You've set the pace. That's what you want. At midnight, you're going to pass them. And lo and behold, 11 o'clock at night, Norm said, the girls are up the road, the three that were in front of me, and they're probably only 5 minutes. You might catch them this lap. And I caught them like they were standing still. And I thought, oh, my goodness, I think this is the time. I think I'm going to attack. And it was up this really steep climb up the back of the observatory. And it was just like rake-hoed in the night before kind of dusty, dirty piece of track that was joining one fire road to the next. I got out of the saddle. I put it in the big chain ring. I just stomped it. And I've got the lights on my helmet. And I was trying to look behind me because I don't want to turn around because the light's going to shine back and they're going to go, oh, she's looking at us. So I just had to look sort of underneath my shoulder and sort of have a look. And I realized no one else was going with me. And I went, now or never. So from then on, from that next few laps, I just really just honed everything in. And so this is around midnight. And I think within a couple of laps, I put in 10 minutes to that group and then kept going. And then in the end, I won that race by 13 minutes.
Yeah, wow.
So that's the second half was the hardest, actually, but it was also the most fun. It was just the most amazing feeling to decide at that point that you're going to attack, put in some hard yards, pull away, put in some good time, and now you're out in front and no one else sees you for the rest of the race.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I'm pretty sure Norm would have been pretty stoked as well, all that work you guys have put in over those years and especially putting yourself on the bones of your ass after Canada to win worlds on home soil would have been pretty awesome for you guys.
Oh, look, it was the most amazing feeling to finish that and realize I decided that I wanted to do something. I ticked all those boxes. I followed all my processes. I trained. I worked on my brain. I worked on my bike. I worked on everything. And then even on the race, I met with my demons and shut them up and I kept going. from that, I realized, oh my goodness, this is all it is. Anything in life, if you want it, you've just got to work. You just got to do the work. Oh my God. And then when you, I guess, get to that 99%, most of us get to say, 99% and go, that'll do. I don't really need to finish it off. But on this day, I had to go that extra 1%. I really did. I couldn't just finish it off at 99 and just go, she'll be right. Because what if someone was chasing me? I had to back myself every second of that race. And I realized at the end, that's all it takes in life, is when everyone else just finishes at 99% and says, oh, that's a pretty good job. Be that person that goes that extra 1% every single time, and you'll be out on top. And not many people go there at all. It was the most amazing epiphany, and I called it my cracking the code of life. And I just realized that's all I have to do at every race from then on.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a little bit more laid back about it, not caring, but I could sit from behind and watch what was going on and start to make decisions about how I was going to win.
Yeah. So I decided to leave it there at the end of Jess's first world win. The story continues on, and she travels the world more and rides more and goes on some pretty awesome adventures. But we also talk about her post-racing life as well, becoming a grandma and everything that entails, and just seeing what she was going to do after post-racing career. So I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You can follow Jess at JE Douglas 73 on Instagram. You can check out all our adventures there, and you can follow me at the TSG Bikecast on Instagram. And also, if you would like to watch the episode, you can check that out on YouTube at That Stoked Guy, which, if you haven't realized by now, that's what the TSG in TSG Bikecast stands for. I get people asking me that a lot for some reason. To be honest, I don't even know why I named it this, but anyway, that's the explanation. So anyway, we'll catch you next week, and for part 2 of my chat with Jess. I love you all, and I'll see you out in the trails.